And welcome to another episode of the Bandit Room. My name is Charles, joined in the studio today by Mr. Caleb.
Hello again.
Across the table from me, we have our CEO, Mr. Aggie.
What's up?
Welcome. And across the table, we have a guest for this episode. If you're from the Charlotte area, you definitely recognize this individual. I think my favorite quote that I've heard recently is the man who was born to do TV weather. And that was a quote by Al Roker about our dear guest, Mr. Larry Sprinkle. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. You know, I'll tell you one thing Al actually said live on the air.
Yeah.
Because I've known Al for probably 25 years. And we were on the air. And he goes, you know, Larry, I was thinking something. You had two opportunities in life. You had two choices as a profession. You could have been a urologist or a meteorologist. You made the right choice. Another quote from Roker right
That's
there.
perfect.
Yeah.
Did he say that one on
Oh,
air?
he did, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Oh, man, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a
Hey,
good
listen,
one.
we throw this word around. We have a VIP guest.
Very
I think
important,
all
yeah.
these days we didn't use it correctly. But today we
Until
do have a
today,
VIP.
I legitimately mean it. I'm not getting any beef from my fellow hosts when I say our special guest today. So thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. It really
Yeah.
is. You know,
And- Yeah.
I
didn't mean to interrupt.
I am very, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
in all of the time that I've been in broadcasting, I have not other than what the station does.
Yeah.
I've never been on another podcast.
Wow.
So
Very my
special.
debut on a
Your
podcast.
debut,
Yeah,
podcast
absolutely.
debut.
Yeah.
My
Look at
goodness.
that. Right.
Exclusive.
It's on the Bandit
The
Room.
Bandit
Pretty
Room
excited.
exclusive.
Yeah, glad to be in the Bandit Room.
Let's go
With
in
a
the
bunch
title.
of bandits around.
That's
here.
right.
Yeah.
Bandits everywhere. We
Yeah.
got a studio full of raccoons. So Sprinkle is indeed your real name. It's
That's,
not. You didn't make it up for.
I
for
would,
your-
whenever I visit schools, which I did yesterday, do
Yeah.
quite often, quite often down here in York County,
Mm-hmm.
Rock Hill area. I always tell the story about people go, how did you get interested in radio? And I said, well, I was fascinated with radio as a little kid. Time I was about 5 or 6 years old, I loved storms and lightning and thunder and all those exciting things. And I told a story about the time I had a chance to go to Channel 12 in Winston-Salem. It's now WXII, but it was WSJS when I was a little kid. And they had a show called The Birthday Club. And if you sent in your name, your telephone number, and the age you're going to be. Back in those days,
Yeah.
name, telephone number was important in age.
Yeah.
So the only thing I ever won was a chance to be on The Birthday Club with 9 of my friends. So you had a birthday party. They gave you birthday cake. You watched cartoons.
Yeah.
But what I was fascinated with was the weather center there. It was not a green screen or blue screen. It was literally a little weather station, and the meteorologist or weatherman stood in front of that.
Yeah.
And after we were off the air, I was looking at it, and the weather guy comes over to me. He looks down and he goes, well, you like what you see there? And I went, yes, sir, I do. And he goes, now you're 10 years old. I just heard you're 10. Is that right? I said, yes, I am. And I want to be just like you when I grow up. He goes, well, what's your name? And then I go, all right, everybody, listen in this room. I said, my name is Larry Sprinkle. And I gave everybody a chance to react. I said, I did not change my name at 10 years old. So, yes, it's my real name.
Perfect. Now, I remember a number of years ago, Stephen Colbert, I believe, threw your name out there when he was listing a list of, I think they were actually fake weatherman names or something like
Storm
that.
Field,
Yeah, Storm Fields, yeah, something
Hurricane
like that.
Smith, people
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Larry Sprinkle,
And they said
come
Larry
on.
Sprinkle,
Yeah,
It was like,
can't be real.
yeah. So setting the record straight here on the Bandit
Yes.
Room.
Right.
Appreciate that. Now, you mentioned Al Roker as well. You did a world record broadcast with him a couple of years ago. Was it the longest running weather report?
Yeah.
So
I
describe-
was at Truist Field up at the ballpark there
Yeah.
in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a number of segments with him over the years. He's been Al Roker has been a number of the charity events he's done. He's stopped in Charlotte a couple of times, so I had a chance to
Nice.
work with him. And then when I was up in New York City, and on the Today Show as doing a report for the station, this is how the Today Show is produced. I had a chance to hang out with him, and he is just a good guy, really nice guy.
Yeah.
He started out in television with a friend of mine, an old radio friend of mine, and so he and I have a connection to going all the way back to when he first started he was actually doing TV and radio at the same time, radio weather guy, TV guy, up in Syracuse, New York.
All right, nice. Now, let's go back a little bit and talk about how you first got into this industry. You've been doing this for a number of years now. Did you start in radio, or did you start in...
I did start in radio. I had this fascination as a kid, like I say, with television, with weather, meteorology, and I was a radio fanatic as a kid. You've heard the story about the transistor radio.
Yeah.
Going to bed at night listening.
Yeah.
And I loved the music, but more than anything, it was the DJs that fascinated with me. You know, the guys, hell, you big time spenders, money lenders, baseball winners, and smooth babysitters. The Giddy Medina, the boss with the hot sauce. You know? Yeah, wow, one day if I could be like that.
Yeah.
And so that was my dream, to be a radio DJ and to work in television weather.
Yeah.
And so I've followed that dream. And when I turned 14, and we lived at that time for 2 years up in Forest City, North Carolina, in between my father's travels, taking us all over the world. And one of my teachers said, I know you're interested in radio. We have 2 radio stations here in this town. Go down and tell me you want a job. That's why I'm only 14. Back at that time, I'm only 14. And she said, well, call them up. And I did. I called the manager, and he said, well, we don't have the openings right now, and you're awful young, but come down and hang out. So for months, my mother would take me down there every day after school, and I'd hang out at the radio station.
Yeah.
At some point, they said, well, this guy's going to be here. Put him on the air. And they gave me my own show.
Wow.
Every day after school. And it was Larry Sprinkle. It was a show called Requestfully Yours.
Okay.
Which is a hokey name for...
Did you come up with that name?
No. It had been there for I think since day one the station had signed on. But you take requests on the telephone. Hey, could you play the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, for me and my boyfriend? People call up and dedicate songs to them. And that was my initiation in radio.
Gotcha.
And so from that time, I stayed in radio throughout middle school, high school, college, and beyond.
Wow.
And so that kept me in a occupation my whole life almost.
Right.
And then everywhere I worked in radio, I went to college.
Yeah.
And so I started out at East Carolina as one of those crazy pirates. I worked in radio, and then I moved on to Memphis State, as it was known then, University of Memphis now, in Memphis, and worked in radio there, WNPS.
Okay.
And came back to the Carolinas to UNCC and had all of my earth science, geography, and meteorology there at UNCC. Still working in radio at Big Waves and WROQ up in Charlotte.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Weird.
And so 38 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 38 years, I celebrated my 38th year at WCNC. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
This young man was not even born yet.
I know. Well, I mean, I go so many, like every school. The school I was at yesterday up in Boiling Springs, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I said, 38 years have been, okay, teacher. All right. You don't remember my 38 years ago.
When your teachers were born, you were on the radio.
Yeah.
I must assume do you know Manning Kimmel, a radio host here for WRHI?
No, I haven't met them, but I'm sure I've heard.
He was here a couple of weeks ago doing a podcast,
Yeah.
and he talked about how he wanted to be in radio all his life. And
Similar story about getting in very young.
Most of the people who started on radio started out as a kid,
right,
hoping someday to be in the business, and so it was a dream. It was a dream come true, and I really literally in radio did everything I wanted to do. I was on a 2 or 3 successful morning shows up in Charlotte, and did met so many people, and did some phenomenal things. I worked in Memphis, had a chance to meet. I'm telling you, I could from.
Let's talk about the music years in Memphis then. Yeah. So
those are great times because, first of all, I'll tell the story. We lived in a section of Memphis called Whitehaven, and it's out Highway 51, which became Elvis Presley Boulevard. And to go to that neighborhood, or that area, you pass by Graceland. So I worked 7 to midnight on the air, and I really wouldn't leave the radio station until about 1 in the morning. And I would drive by Graceland, and there were always people outside the gate, a bunch of guys, every night. Yeah. So I got the guts up to stop in one night and park my car, got out. There were like 6 guys standing there.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? I said, Back in those days, I used another name. My name was Larry Lawrence, WMPS. Cool name. And I said, "Hi guys, I'm Larry Lawrence from WMPS," and they kind of say, "Oh yeah, okay." I see you guys here every night. I just want to stop in and say hello. Said, "Oh, we're just kind of hanging out."
Yeah.
And in the guard shack was Vester Presley. And so Elvis's uncle,
Wow.
and nice guy, older guy.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he kind of took a liking to this Larry Lawrence guy. He said, "You come back anytime you want to." So I started hanging out.
Okay.
Hanging out night after night.
Yeah.
Months go by, and then one night, it's probably about 3 a.m. Now this is back when no one knew about what Elvis did in his life. The books, the movies, none of that had come out.
Yeah.
So he goes, we're all standing there, and a call comes in. He goes, yeah. Well, hold on. Any of you boys want to go to the movie? And so I'm thinking, it's 3 a.m. Go to the movie. And one of the guys goes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. There's 6 of them. So he's, yep, there's 6. He goes, all right, there's going to be some cars coming down. You guys jump in the 3rd and 4th cars.
Okay.
I went, all right, there's some cars coming down. I'm standing there. One car comes and moves through the gates. And then the next car was a Mercedes. And it had tinted windows. So I'm standing there, and the front window goes down the driver's side.
Yeah.
I looked. The guy goes, "You guys getting that 3rd car back there, man? The 3rd and 4th cars, and just follow us. We're going to the Memphis Theater." It was Elvis.
It was Elvis.
Right?
Wow.
Window goes up. And I went, oh my.
Incredible voice, by the way.
Thank you very much. So we follow them to the Memphian Theater, downtown Memphis, and it's lit. This is like 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's lit up like it's 7 o'clock at night. Look inside. There are not people in there, but everything is wide open. The popcorn machine is going. Everything is just like it's ready for prime time.
Nice.
We go in, and one of the guys is standing there. He goes, "All right, you guys come on in. You want anything? Get any popcorn, whatever."
Yeah.
Took us in. Took us about halfway down. You guys sit right here. So we sat down. We're waiting, and then maybe 10 minutes later, this group. This is long before anybody knew there were people called the Memphis Mafia. It was Elvis and some of these guys.
Yeah.
Maybe 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
They got on. They sit about 10 rows in front of us, and we watched 2 first-run movies. I cannot tell you what they are to this day because I'm sitting there going, "That's Elvis Presley." And I want to tell people. Right. I didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have cell phones back then.
You didn't snap a shot.
I didn't have my camera with me. No one had little cameras back then. But I went, oh my. So we watched the movies. Movie finishes. The same guy comes and takes us. Stand right here. We go to the lobby. We're standing in the lobby. These other guys come out.
Yeah.
And then here comes Elvis Presley. He walks into the lobby. And I can't describe the sensation or the look or the amazing person he was, because at that time he was in perfect shape, and and I have to say this, he had the most perfect skin. He was the most perfect person. And he was dressed not like for a concert, but he had this, remember this is back in the day, flared shirt, open collar, big medallion, big belt buckle, flared pants, dressed like he was not going on stage, but sure not for a movie. Yeah. And so the guy goes, Elvis, these are guys that we brought with us. And, you saw them out the gate out there, our Investor's friends, and this is blank. And then he goes, this right here is Larry Lawrence from WMPS. I reached over, shook his hand, and I was going, thank you for inviting me. This is what a great experience. He goes, at WMPS, my first manager, Bob Neal, he was a morning DJ there way back, which is true. Yeah. Before Colonel Tom.
Oh, wow.
His manager was a morning guy at that radio station way back in the day. So I shook hands, and he said, come back, do it again. Well, I never did go again, but it was just the experience.
Yeah.
Wow,
being there,
that's awesome.
So I went to the movies with Elvis.
That's crazy.
Yeah, great.
That's crazy.
But the sensation that you're talking about when you see someone that huge, that personality. I used to work on cruise ships, and I worked for Disney Cruise Lines, taking pictures, other stuff. And in Port Canaveral, when on the day of embarkation, passengers coming in, they're waiting in line, and there's Mickey or Minnie will walk into the lobby, and 80-year-old, men like going crazy because they just saw Mickey.
A guy in a costume.
Yeah. It's a girl in a
Mickey
costume.
Mouse.
Yes.
It's not the
Yes,
one.
and they just go crazy. Like
I know.
this is like a full body experience for them.
It's
It was
something you've seen your
to
entire
see that.
life.
Yeah.
And you've seen in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with Elvis, it was like this aura was around him, like the spotlight came on, and he stood there, and he just looked like a perfect human being.
Interesting.
And when we shook his hand, I shook hands with him. It was like, I felt like a little kid.
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to watch the movie, the one that just came out?
Yes,
Elvis?
absolutely. I thought it was an excellent movie. I'm not sure if historically it was embellished.
Okay.
As far as that performance,
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah.
He captured the
he did a
essence
good job.
because in concert. I saw Elvis twice in Charlotte. The two shows that he did in Charlotte.
Oh, wow.
And they were just the first one was when he was still the karate guy, and the second one he had gained a little bit of weight and still did an amazing job. The first one we set, kind of looking down, maybe I don't know, halfway up the over at Bojangles
Okay, I was
Coliseum.
going to say what venue
Yeah,
would it have been.
Bojangles. It was just the Coliseum back then. The second time we were like 6 rows from stage.
Wow.
And to see and to look up there and in fact we were so close. He was on stage and he did his little. Remember, he gained a little bit of weight at this time. And he's got the whole group behind him. He's got the singers over here, J.D. Summer, the Stamps, the Sweet Inspirations, and he does a little karate move, and he almost fell.
Oh.
And we were close enough. He put the mic down. He looked over at J.D. Sumner. So J.D., I almost busted my A on that one. So, I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I'm saying. But we were close up to hear him say that, and he just laughed about it.
Oh,
went on
my
the
God.
concert. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That had to have been a crazy experience to be watching a performance and be like, I went to a movie with this guy one time.
Yeah.
We used to hang out.
I went to the people. Hey, I went to the movie one time with that guy. I know it. Hey, L, it's me, Larry. L, you Larry Lawrence, ma'am, WMPS. Thank you.
But excellent voices, though. So did you study acting at all as well?
Well, I mean, you want to go into a crazy career.
Yeah.
I started out as a kid being and I'm telling you, as shy as any guy could be.
Mm-hmm.
We moved a lot when I was growing up, and I think because we moved so much, it just more or less intensified my shyness. I had a hard time meeting people.
Yeah.
Once I met them, I was okay. And so I thought, gosh, acting allows you to be somebody you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started 12 years old, doing theater and doing acting, and then continued that all the way into my radio career. When I was in radio, I did a lot of theater, and I did a lot of commercials, even a lot of national commercials too. And some are well known, some aren't.
Yeah.
Some you may have seen on YouTube, maybe not.
Yeah.
Then
We did find some yesterday. Part of our research.
Some may have something to do with Flushing, that one. But then I had a really good agent in Charlotte, and I did, before I had the agent, I did some just terrible movies.
Oh.
B movies.
Yeah,
I don't mean radio. I'm talking about they're PG movies, but
Right.
just bad. They weren't released. They escaped. and some horror movies is awful. And then I did a couple. I worked with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
We filmed. I was looking at it was 1983 that we shot Firestarter. I was in that, and it was released in '84. She was, I think, maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
She had just done E.T. the year before,
gotcha.
and so I worked with her. I played an airport police guy, security guard.
Yeah.
And so when we weren't shooting, she was just running around, typical little girl. I go, E.T., phone home. She finally looked up at me and goes, you know what? You're just way too silly. Grow up. I said, okay. And then a film that was released back in the mid-'80s, shot in Wilmington. I played a talk show host in this one. And I worked with a guy who is a legend in the history of rock and roll. His name was Ozzy Osbourne.
Wow. Yeah.
And Ozzy and I were filmed together. He played an anti-rock and roll crusader, and I interviewed him.
Uh-huh.
And in the scenes we're in, on the table, they put Black Sabbath and Ozzy albums.
Uh-huh.
And then they had a kind of a dummy album that they used in the scene that we're talking about, and the description of the album. I think it's a PG-13 film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played with I interview him, and so I had a chance to hang out with Ozzy for a couple of days.
Huh.
The director of the film knew that he was a little bit nervous about being on camera, and he said, just hang out with him.
Huh.
First of all, they braided his hair back. It's like the length of mine now.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and goes, if my mom saw me like this now, she would want me to come back to England and be a truck driver again, He was totally straight, really nice guy, open to every question that I asked him about this was like 1985 or 6 we shot that. Yeah. So he, at that point in his life, he really was completely okay.
Yeah. Clean
and sober. Obviously, a few years later, had some situations on and off, but he was open to. And I asked him I said, tell me a thing about the bat.
Yeah.
And he said, I did it one time. I did, and then we would carry a rubber bat.
So
it's But anyway, working with people like that.
Do you have some questions about his films?
Oh yeah.
But before you say that, Caleb is big into movies, classic movies.
These are movie buff.
Movie buff, yeah.
So I grew up around Charlotte, and I've seen you on TV pretty much my whole life, but I had no idea that you were in, radio, movies, and things. So finding out this other side of you was very interesting for me. So
most of it's true. Most of it.
Now here's something. I know Firestarter is probably your biggest movie. I couldn't find any good pictures from that, but I did find one.
Yeah.
We wondered if we could get you to sign this bit from Dogs from Hell.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely.
This was
Dogs of Hell.
Dogs of Hell.
Dogs of Hell.
I don't know how you found that one. Wow, that's a classic right there.
Yeah.
Do you remember filming that movie and stuff?
Yeah, no, that was shot. That was in fact that was shot in Lake Lure, Chimney Rock, and I played the. I think was I the mayor of that little town. It was a little community, and it was. It was a movie, Killer Dogs from Hell. It started out as a movie called Rottweiler. It was about a pack of these crazy wild dogs that attacked viciously the people who lived in this town. And did away with most of them. And I was, I'll kind of explain quickly what happened. So in this major scene I'm in, this movie was shot in there were the early days of 3D in the 50s. And then there was this period of time, there was no 3D, and this was when 3D came back.
That was in the 80s, right?
Yeah. But it was released in 3D and then regular. But it just, I will say this movie escaped. It wasn't released. Seriously. And somehow it ended up, and it was really big, and I think it was either Norway, some Scandinavian country. It was like a major film there.
Wow.
But in this one scene, there's a sound at the door, and this friend of mine, who actually, the guy that I'm in the scene with this happens, whose name is Mike McKay, and Mike is an old broadcaster, still at WDAV up in Davidson, did weather at Channel 3 for many, many years. He and I were good friends, so we both were cast in this film and worked together in it. And so I go to the door, bang the doors, and I go, who's here? And the door opens, and then boom, these Rottweilers attack.
Oh my gosh!
So what they had the mean Rottweilers that they focused in on for that shot.
Yeah.
With gnarly teeth and growling and barking.
Yeah.
Then the really calm, beautiful, sweet Rottweilers that you could hold in your arms like a baby.
Yeah.
And that's what we worked with. So what they did is they had to put bologna under my collar, shirt collar, and then they had it there so that they would lick it. But then when you take the dog, I had to hold it down, hold its head down, so it looks like I'm actually trying to push it away.
Gotcha.
And he's licking it, so what you're adding the sound effects of ripping my neck apart, and then all this fake blood and everything. So it's a really bloody scene.
Yeah.
It's a bloody scene.
It's a bloody
But
scene.
anyway, that's Killer Dogs Bill. Was I Fred Davenport in that?
That was what you were listed at.
Okay, I guess that was Fred Davenport. So okay.
So what happened in the movie career? Did you continue? You wanted to continue, or what happened there?
To my about
Like
my film career?
being movies.
Well, I mean, I just never made it. That's quite honestly, I just never got to that point where I had a major role or anything. I did some films. There was a guy named Earl Winsby up in Shelby back in the '70s who did about 20 movies. They were shot all over the Carolinas. They were low-budget films. And I had a couple decent parts in those, but they were just low-budget films. They were, back in those days, released to drive-ins or, released on cassette tape, the old days. I just never had the chance to pursue it beyond the smaller parts. And then I had a family, got to pay the rent.
Right.
And I was in radio, had a job in radio, and then got in television. So I just said, well, I had my experience in films and move on.
Yeah. So you were doing these alongside your radio career and your TV career at the same time.
I did a movie called it was back in the mid-'70s. There was a terrible situation up north called the Son of Sam murders. I was in this movie called Another Son of Sam.
So was it a parody of the actual?
Bad as a film could ever be. It was more horrible than horrible.
But did you realize that when you were filming it? Are you saying that now?
Let me tell you what happened. So this was filmed. And I'll tell you the other thing. I never got paid 1 cent for that. Now, I'm going to just say his first name. Dave, if you're listening to me, you owe me money. We worked all summer. It was on weekends because I was still in radio. Every weekend, Friday night, because it was shot at night. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Everything was shot at night that I was in. All the scenes. And except for one anyway. So... this is about this guy that just kills people. His name is Sam.
Yeah.
And I play a cop. And at some point, this cop is attacked by this guy. And it's point of view where the camera is the killer. So what you see in the scene is the killer looking
Killer's
around.
perspective.
And so he's looking at me.
Yeah.
And so I go into this room where I think he is, and he attacks me. And so my direction was, Larry, you got to react to him attacking you. And so he's going to physically do terrible things to you. He's going to beat you up and throw you against the wall and everything. So I had to throw myself up against the wall, on the bed, against tables. I mean, I had to kill myself. Literally. I came back to life. But that was such a classic scene right there. Yeah, it was. That's why I got out of the film business, because that was the kind of movies I was in. One quick thing about this. So we had a script. We had a script to go by. So halfway through this film, we get to the set one day, and this director, I'm just only say his name is Dave, producer, director, star, whatever, the guy that didn't pay me my money, script writer. He goes, "All right, guys, okay, come over here." So it's a bunch of cops.
Yeah.
There's like 3 or 4 cops. Okay, Larry, here's what you say. You're going to say, "Okay, I went into the dorms, and I went upstairs, and I looked. I didn't see anything. I came back down here. I think I heard something, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Jerry, you say that." Went around all of us, recited the lines, and then he goes, "Okay, let's shoot this. All right, action." I said, Dave, what was that? I told you. I told you what to say. You don't remember it? I said, no. That's the kind of film it's like.
So was it a script or anything?
No.
Just kind of
yes. Halfway through it, the script ran out, and the movie did too.
So, I know you said you were also doing radio then. Did you talk about those movies in those radio?
It was the most embarrassing thing I ever done in my life. And they're all done nothing more than maybe PG-13 movies.
Right.
The most. Maybe a soft. I never did anything of one of those movies. No, I never did. I never mentioned one thing about it, because I just wanted to get this done and get over with it. But
so if you had someone heard this and an agent reached out to you wanting to go back into movies, would that be of interest
do
to
you
you?
know agents?
Find people.
Somebody.
You never know who may be listening.
I know, yeah. It's film work is not easy. It's time-consuming, and there's a lot of waiting and waiting.
Right.
And that's what really drove me crazy about film work. Because if you're doing theater, you're on stage and you just start point A to finish. Film work, it's okay. Let's set the shots up. You guys have been around it, but in a film, if it's done properly, you're doing angles. Okay, close up, wide shot, close up. It could take days to do one scene. Yeah. And I just drove me crazy.
Probably especially because you're working in radio and TV simultaneously, and you're just putting stuff on the air daily, and you're like, why can't these people get it together?
So I had a hard time dealing with that.
Charles here is into
I have a theater background a little bit.
And he puts on like community shows and stuff.
Involved with the community theater here a little bit. So did you ever do anything with the theater?
Oh I did. Even in Charlotte. Yeah.
You have some favorite roles?
Or
a role you'd like to do?
That I like to do. You know what? Of all the stage plays, I loved Our Town.
Nice.
I did the narrator in Our Town.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of my favorites, and I would do that again. I did up in Waxhaw way back, going back to the 70s and 80s. They did an outdoor drama. They had an outdoor theater in Waxhaw, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Listen to Remember was a life and times of Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
It was a life of Andrew Jackson, our 7th president.
Yeah.
And I played Andrew Jackson in that.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so that was always a great experience.
That'd be a fun character
to
play.
It was. You can imagine Andrew Jackson.
You didn't have the... I'm trying to imagine what kind of scenes would you... Did you
well,
have the scene where you beat the guy to death?
No, none of the violent scenes. This was the softer side of Andrew Jackson. Yeah.
He's our only president who's been... there was an attack on his life, and he literally beat the guy to death.
Yeah. That's what they did back in those days.
Right.
Yeah.
When men
that's
were
why
men.
I stopped doing Andrew Jackson.
So if you were to do a big play now, and if you are one of the lead character, would that be any restriction on changing your hairstyle for that?
I'd have to. I can't do that play. Sorry, Broadway. No, I can't touch that cloth. It doesn't move. We did about 3 weeks ago. We went to the Aerodyne Wind Tunnel up in Mooresville.
Yeah.
And did it was really a story about what they do, testing wind and how cars react to wind.
Yeah.
We had to do the hair test, and we showed it on the air. It got up to over 100 miles an hour, and not one hair moved in my hair. Really, hurricane force winds. It's online if you look at it.
Oh
you
my
can find
gosh.
it right there.
That's
Yeah.
Speaking of hurricane situations, you've over the years you've covered a lot of weather events.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say the most extreme that you've covered has been Hugo?
Well, because it had affected me directly.
Yeah.
Now, I have been one of those people that back in the early days who's been at the beach, with a microphone, standing there on the shore. Right. Winds are blowing up 100 miles an hour, and embellishing the way you're moving and everything.
People should definitely not be out here.
Yeah, and then really getting tossed around. So, but Hurricane Hugo, September 22nd, 1989, I was on the air. And we were in another building out in the Hickory Grove section of Charlotte. And next to the building is a 1,400-foot tower, transmission tower, and connected to big guide wires, 1,000-pound cables.
Wow.
And during the storm, one of those cables snapped, hit the roof, and the ceiling caved in as I was on the air right in front of me.
Oh, my gosh.
About 500 pounds of ceiling. So when I'm on the air, I was in the studio by myself, and the camera is I'm facing the camera, and over here, I looked up and saw, and I said, the ceiling just caved in on me. Back to you, Rick. And I literally, on my hands and knees, crawled out there. It took me like 5 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Rick goes, Larry, let me ask you a question. Larry? We'll get back to Larry. Larry was out of there in a heartbeat. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
The broadcast didn't cut though. You kept
on. Yeah. I said, back to you, Rick, and then never got back to me.
Never got back to you and follow up.
Yeah.
Man, well, you've been in some real stressful situations.
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of the job. And then obviously covering the severe weather out. And when I was in Memphis, Tennessee, in radio, and believe it or not, in those days, it wasn't called Storm Chaser. It was just someone who was crazy. And the top of WMPS, Union Avenue in Memphis, you could get up there and you could see across the Mississippi River into Arkansas. And I could get out there and I could see storms developing. I started going across the river chasing.
Oh.
And I didn't have a camera.
Yeah.
I wasn't live on TV. I was just fascinated until I came upon a scene that was horrible. It was a tornado hit a small community, and it was not good. It was the worst. And from that point on, I would never want to do that again. Now, I have here for the TV station, but on my own, out of curiosity, that's just something I don't want to see again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just leveled houses and things.
Oh yeah, and people's lives lost and things like that. Yeah. But that's the other side. That's there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then most of it has been very, very good, obviously. Right. But it's just part of the job.
Yeah.
So at the TV station now, when there's some big changes coming, big weather or hurricane or something is coming, is that like a exciting time for your department, or is it a tough time for you?
Well, there is anticipation. There's I wouldn't say that people are positively excited, but there's an excitement because that's what you do. You cover severe weather, you cover tragic news events, and there's anticipation. I mean, there's always people always you get nervous. Way back in the day when I first started. Now, I mean, there's maybe a little bit of anxiety because you're on the air. You want to make sure what you dispense, the information is right. You're telling people what to do. I mean, even like in a weather situation, like we're putting this on not tape, but it's being recorded. But today we have an opportunity later for some big storms that I talked about already. That we could see some very severe weather today. A lot of up in the mountains in North Carolina, and even around this area. So your job is to make people assured that you have the right information, the right forecast, and you're telling them when this is going to happen, if there's a storm, where it is now, where it's going to go, the power of it, what it can do, and then also to let people know that this is a time that you should seek safety, seek shelter, go to a safe place, things like that.
So we have a couple of TV stations around, like ABC, NBC, pretty much CBS and all the channels. Yeah. Is there a friendship among the weather folks to share information about any severe weather, or you guys are all worried about the rating, just stick to yourself?
Everyone who works, even we all compete against each other. I'm with an NBC affiliate, but we all know people who work at the other stations, and it's a friendly competition. As far as meteorologists on the air, we don't really share anything. They have all their information, the same stuff that we have. Basically, it's interpretation that makes it sometimes different. During Hurricane Hugo, I knew the other guys were on the air, and they had their own sets of problems, but. You were so busy you don't have time to go, hey, what are you guys doing over there? Well, let me tell you what happened over here. Ceiling just caved in on me.
What would you say, since you've been in the game for so long, are the biggest changes that you've seen over that time in the industry?
In television, 38 years ago, I remember television had just gone from there. At one time, the weather guy, the meteorologist would draw maps. It was all very artistic. Yeah. And then the next was putting the little stick-ons on the map. And it just gone from that literally to the smallest, most basic computer ever. Yeah. As I look back, I found a tape not too long ago of some of those graphics we did, and it literally looks like something maybe a 3-year-old would do.
Why?
That's how much we changed. No, it's the sophistication of technology in so many respects, in forecasting, in what we show on the air, the satellite imagery, the radar imagery, the fact that we can, with technology today, pinpoint storms to the exact where they are, where they're going, the distance, how fast they're moving, to forecasting out. We try to go not too much more than about 10 days out on a 7-day forecast. And when I say we, this includes everyone, because we all, once again, have the basic information, and we're all pretty good at that's 7 day out. It used to be the accuracy rate was maybe 60%. Now we're up to, on the 7th day, up to 90% with variations.
Yeah.
And there are, it's still an inexact science. And Mother Nature will play tricks. You go, yeah, you thought I was going to move that front faster. So we have no control over the movement of storm systems,
right.
Whether they slow down and move forward or whether they take a turn. It's like hurricanes. They're on a path, but they can take some crazy turns. And so there's still always the sensibility that that weather can change dramatically. And it'll do that.
Yeah.
It'll slap you in the face occasionally.
So
you
with
just have to admit it.
Right. With all the changes in the technology, were you excited with the changes upcoming? Were you looking forward to getting an upgrade in the technology you were using, or were you one of those person like, leave me alone?
There are a lot of people, and I remember back in the day when we had giant, called Difax charts, big weather charts that came on a machine, on a Difax machine, and it churned out reams of paper. And then you had charts of information where you actually sat down and you plotted out areas of high and low pressure and frontal boundaries and things like that. So there was a lot of fun in that part where it's all hand operated. Now it's all for you right there.
Right.
But it's so sophisticated and there's so much of that information, and you can spend hours going over charts. And still go, let me do this by hand this time. No, I think the fact that we knew that this sophistication would help us, and especially in the accuracy rate, we're all accepting of that.
Right on.
Yeah.
I got exposed to a detail how to read weather reports.
Oh yeah,
recently.
When you were doing your aviation training.
Right.
If you're in pilots, you're in the middle of meteorology.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know the science, and when you're taking those courses, you're taking meteorology courses, and it's so important. I mean, as a pilot, I talk to pilots all the time. And that we always have that commonality.
Right.
They know a lot about weather. I don't know a lot about flying planes, though. But I'm fascinated by it.
But the technology we use, even when I go flying now, it's amazing. Just on my iPad, I can plot the entire chart where I want to go, where I need to dodge the weather, where I need to go around. It's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, we studied quite a bit of that in pilot school, but once we're done with the school, not really going back and reading those books, but just the technology we have and the tools we have at our disposal, it's so good.
Yeah, I've always admired pilots. I've never been one of those who took flight lessons, but I certainly admire what pilots do, whether it's the smaller planes or the jumbo jets or whatever. It's still fascinating. They actually get that thing off the ground.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was very intrigued by was your work at Murphy in the Morning. It seemed like, so for people that aren't familiar, it was a radio show in Charlotte. He moved the show to Chicago later.
Yeah, he did. We were at WAYS WROQ in Charlotte at that time, and there was a guy named Robert Murphy, and he and I worked together. He came in Jay left in 76, and Murphy left in 82, so 6 years we worked together on the morning show. And he was just a genius at comedy. Yeah. Murphy was spectacular on the air, fast-thinking guy on the air, fast on his feet, fast with a comeback, knew every joke and the punchline of every joke in the world. Yeah. And as far as a comedic talent and writer, he was a genius. And so we worked together on a lot of comedy sketches.
Nice.
And it really kind of started with his amazing ability to create these concepts, and then we would take the concept and embellish it. Yeah. And in those days, you could a lot of what we did was pre-recorded. A lot was done live, and we each had our own set of equipment. Back in those days, it was all analog. Yeah. So we even still had turntables, but we had cart machines that played sound effects and music. Gosh. And I had my own. I had my own deck of cart machines, and he did too. Yeah. So that was all done live. That's wild. Kind of rehearsed, kind of not, but we had a basic script that we would go by to do all that.
Do you have any favorite characters from that?
Well, I mean, one that we did that you heard a minute ago was Big E. Yeah. Thank you very much. Big E. Give me a big old peanut butter and now sandwich, baby. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We did We did.
I like the Pass the Loot quite a bit.
Yeah, Brother Bill Taker.
Brother Bill
Taker of the Pass the Loot Club. So happy to be here. I want all your money now, friends and neighbors. You can make $100 donation for $99 today to the Pass the Loot Club.
That's so funny. And you guys were doing that in like 81, 80,
yeah,
80,
oh, yeah,
81. This was like years before he.
Yeah, 76,
really
82. So it was long before. We did that when...
Because he didn't get into this legal trouble until about 8 years later.
When everybody thought
right?
this guy was so righteous.
Yeah.
He was this Jim, and they were just so nice. And not to realize they were just taking millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
But we were doing comedy sketches and really got a lot of you-know-what from it.
Yeah.
Until people realized, well, wait a minute, there's the truth. Good saying.
Did you ever meet him while he was here?
No, I met his wife.
Jim,
I was at a recording studio up in Charlotte, and she was doing a session there.
Mm-hmm.
I had just done a voiceover session, and she came in very nice. We talked. I don't think she knew who I was.
Yeah.
At the time, otherwise she would have.
You might not.
Sorry. Yeah. Crazy times.
It's fascinating.
But talking about not knowing who you were, so how's life on a daily basis for you, other than work when you're out and about?
Yeah,
It's
can you even go
It's a
out?
nightmare.
Can you go out in Charlotte? I mean, I imagine you're bombarded all the time by.
The way I look at it, years and years ago when I was still in radio, I was at a supermarket in Charlotte, in Matthews, where I live, and I was still in radio, still wanting one day to be doing weather on television. And there was a weather guy in there from I will not say his name or the station, but well known. And I walked in. I saw him walking like he was getting ready to leave, and there's several people around and went and looked at him.
Yeah.
And a guy went, "Hey," I won't say his name because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. He went, "Hey, oh my gosh, could you tell me the weather? What's the weather going to be?" The guy goes, "If you want to know the weather, there is the door right there. You walk right outside and you will see the weather. I'm off, okay? I'm off the air right now." And I thought to myself, I'll never, ever be that way.
Oh, wow.
And so when I go to the supermarket, grocery store, I may do the forecast 10 times. Larry, what's the weather? Hey, Larry. So, when I was in radio, because you're just a face, no one knows what you look like.
Right.
And so I was anonymous in many respects. Sometimes I would be talking, "Oh, yeah, the guy on the radio."
Yeah.
But now, because I've been on 38 years on television, people, if they don't recognize me, then I'm in serious trouble. Not everybody does. I mean, not everybody watches the station, but quite often, and I accept that, and I take it as a giant compliment, and always polite to people, and whatever they, forecast or can we take a selfie? Nowadays it's take a selfie. Back in the old days it's an autograph. Very few people ask for autographs anymore.
Yeah.
But I accept that as part of the job, and always happy about it.
Here comes the lightning round, or speed round, faster round. Anyway, we're going to ask the guest a bunch of quicker questions. Here we go. So, what is something that you would say you spend way too much money on?
Hairspray.
That's a good answer. Edit that in. Hairspray. I get cheap hairspray. I really do. I won't tell you the brand, it's so cheap. But it works. That's the main thing. I told you, wind speed 100 miles an hour. Not a strand hair moves, so that cheap hairspray works. It stinks, but it works. To be quite honest with you, I really... I don't have something that I spend a lot of money on. I really don't.
Not a guilty pleasure.
I'm not a collector of cars or houses or whatever. I just
watches, bourbon.
I don't wear a watch. I don't have jewelry. Just sad. It's a sad, boring life. Right?
You don't even eat meat.
No, I'm cheap.
Too cheap.
Too cheap to spend money. There you go.
That's good. I think you've answered this, but when you were growing up, what was your dream job, and is that still true?
Yeah, it was from the time I started listening to radio when I was probably 5, and watching TV weather when I was probably 7 or 8. So really, both of those, radio and television, both of those were just dreams I had, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Awesome. And I'm still on the pay-to-learn process, by the way.
Awesome. Would you say you have any role models?
I mean, I've admired so many people. A lot of the people I admire are just people you meet. People that you come to know that maybe they're someone who overcame an amazing challenge, or someone who started out life with very little. I love to learn about people, and I've always been able to meet people and remember something about them and something special because I listen. People don't listen today. They're too busy talking about themselves, and I just learned a long time ago to be a good listener.
Yeah.
So people are good listeners. I admire very much.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
Very
a good
good.
I
answer.
can't imagine you would have been as successful if you were not a good listener. Yeah.
Thank you. You have to be.
You have to be,
you
yeah.
have to. That's you learn. How do you learn? You have to listen.
Right.
Kids always ask me, what, our teachers say, what is some advice? Say, kids, learn to listen to everybody. You can learn from every person. It doesn't matter who they are, where they came from, their background. Learn from them. And I think it's the greatest growing experience anybody can have. You embellish yourself with so much knowledge by learning from everybody.
What's something in your industry that you consider underrated?
Meteorologists are always underrated. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something in television where this is underrated. I think some people don't realize behind the scenes how much work a lot of people do, and the number of hours it takes. That those in all, doesn't matter whether you're on air or off air, that there's a lot of hard work goes on behind the scenes, from the technical standpoint to the producing side of things, those who produce TV, to the people at the assignment desk who are there for hours and hours and hours online or answering phones, contacting people, people contacting them, and just the real tough work, hard work, and long hours and such ungodly hours that people have to work in the TV business.
So, do you work, how does it work? Do you work 5 days a week, or how does that work?
Does your schedule vary?
Yeah, well, I mean, 5 days a week, definitely, but there are times when, if there's a weather situation or I fill in for somebody, and then we have a lot of promotions that we do on the weekend that require, like we were at the Strawberry Festival in Fort Mill a couple weeks ago. I mean, and then for me personally, I do a lot of volunteer work, I do a lot of charity, emceeing, and do a lot of charity auctions. So that extends, I mean, if you want to call it work, for me, it's just part of what you do, but it does make the week longer. But my job, I get to work at 2:30 in the morning. I go on the air at 4:30 in the morning. I get up at 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Well, the alarm clock goes off at 1:30, a little before 1:30.
So what time do you go to bed
It's almost
then?
bedtime
I'm asleep
then,
right now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just, ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's insane, I know.
Yeah.
I never, I'm just one of those people, I can't go to bed early, so you don't really want to know what time I go to bed.
So in case of a severe weather and you're home or you're somewhere else, do they just bring in a helicopter for you to take you back to the station? How does that
We had a helicopter. If it's severe weather, you wouldn't fly in a helicopter. No. If you are in a severe weather situation and it's necessary, then they'll get in touch with you. And nowadays, obviously, cell phone or phone, but then whatever way, texting. We need you now, but you could be called in at any time.
And then
that's happened, definitely.
Right. If it's a late night situation, that you guys just stay in the station.
Hurricane Hugo, for example, literally, it was around 30 hours nonstop.
Wow.
Yeah, we did not leave the job. And there have been many times 10, 12, 18 hours straight. Those are the kinds, I don't like to think about that, but that's part of the job.
Right.
It's part of what you do,
So what do you do in your free time then, Larry?
Sleep. A lot of what I do is I've always enjoyed the work I do for different charities, emceeing events. I do a lot of charity where I'm an auctioneer, charity auctioneer, and that's what I do a lot of my free time.
Okay.
Is that.
What
And
are
then,
some
and
of
then
the-
a little bit of other free time is seriously trying to relax a little bit, not doing anything.
Right.
But that's few and far between. But no, I don't have a lot. I'm not a golfer, and I know how to play golf. I'm not a golfer. I don't have any giant hobbies. I just enjoy what I do, and then if that's being out there with the charity, doing whatever I am, auctioning, right here, get a 5, 5, 5, 5, whatever.
Got the auctioneer voice.
Whatever it takes, yeah.
There you go.
So I know before the show, you were saying in your younger days, you and your family, you were traveling a lot to different countries. Do you still travel a lot to other countries? No, you don't.
No, I haven't. Not that I wouldn't do that, but I did literally have a chance to travel all over the world, around the world twice and a half, all over Southeast Asia, Middle East, East Africa, Southern Europe. So if I did go somewhere, it would be you're going to say you want to go there, but I've been everywhere except I haven't been to London. I haven't been to England. I have not been to Paris. So, but I've been all these other really exotic places. So those, although you go, wow, that's just so simple to do that. But those really, I'd love to go to Great Britain. I love to go because I'm such a Beatles fanatic.
Yeah.
To Liverpool, it's great to be here. Yeah. To see where they were, it's great to be there in Liverpool. To see where they came from, it's great to be there.
Yeah, man.
Do you have any question for us?
Okay, where's my list? No, I just appreciate you guys inviting me. Thank you.
No, thank you for being here.
Like I said, my first real podcast, and it's been a wonderful experience. You guys are very well prepared. It's like sitting around with a bunch of good friends in a living room. You make it easy, and you make it fun, and make it a much more simple process. A lot of people think it may be.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming.
for coming
Really
by.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us this week on the Bandit Room. Stick around next week and see what we're talking about.
The Bandit Room is a production of Span Enterprises, located in sunny Rock Hill, South Carolina. We've been developing, supporting, and growing successful IRS e-filing and business management solutions since 2010. Go to spanenterprises.com now to learn more. The views and opinions expressed in the Bandit Room are those of the guests, and do not necessarily reflect or state the opinions of Span Enterprises. No information should be considered as tax, legal, or other professional advice.